Welcome to episode number 273, where I'm speaking with Ayurvedic chef Divya Alter about the 5 types of herbal liquids according to Ayurveda. The Pancha Vidha Kashaya, which includes fresh juice, pulp, decoction, cold infusion, and hot infusion, when they're used and the properties of each. So please stay tuned. Hi there, I'm your host Colette, and on this podcast I will be sharing the teachings of Ayurveda, yoga, and holistic health practices. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend checking out the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Thanks for listening, and now here's a new episode. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today, I'm very happy to welcome back Divya Alter, a regular guest on the podcast, but I want to read her bio for those of you who maybe are new to Divya. Divya is a certified nutritional consultant, educator, and chef in the Shaka Vansiya Ayurveda tradition. In 2016, Divya and her husband Prentiss founded Divya's Kitchen, a plant-based restaurant in New York City that reimagines classic dishes through an Ayurvedic lens. Divya's brand has since expanded to include a line of plant-based retail food products and educational videos. Divya is also the co-founder of Bhagavat Life, a non-profit culinary school that offers cooking classes and an Ayurvedic chef certification program. She is also author of What to Eat for How You Feel, the new Ayurvedic kitchen, and her most recent book, The Joy of Balance, an Ayurvedic guide to cooking with healing ingredients. Divya, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to have you again.
Thank you, Colette. I'm so glad to be back.
Yes, it's always lovely to chat with you, Divya. And the title of your last book is kind of on the lines of what we're talking about today, cooking with healing ingredients, because we're going to talk about the 5 types of herbal liquids for healing.
Yes, it's been so interesting to me. I've been studying this at our Dinacharya master classes that are led by Dr. Bhashwati Bhattacharya, and she brings in also other amazing teachers. So we've been studying the Ashtanga Hridayam in depth, and these 5 different types of liquids used as remedies in Ayurveda, they're called Pancha Vidha Kashaya in Sanskrit. So it's been so interesting because it really opened up my perception of how they are also used in cooking, not just for like remedies that you take as medicine, but they're also completely available when we cook. So I'm excited to speak about this.
Great. Well, let's start. Maybe just list them and then we can go through each one. How's that?
Sure. So the first type, so Ayurveda always lists things in order, and the order is always important.
Right, exactly.
So the first type of liquid is fresh juice, the fresh juice of a plant. It's called Svarasa. Next is the pulp, a fresh pulp, like it's usually when you juice something, you make it into a pulp and then you extract the juice. So juice, then pulp, and then you have a decoction, which is very, it's called Kvata. It's like when you brew the herbs down, like you put the herbs in water and you kind of brew it until they reduce to certain quantity.
Right. Very concentrated, right?
Very concentrated. Yeah. That's very much stronger. And then you have cold and hot infusion. Cold infusion is called Heema, like the Himalayas. Heema means cold. So cold infusion and hot infusion. And they all have their applications, their dosages. The cold infusion is simply like when you just soak certain herbs or leaves, like you make a mint water or something like that. That's just a simple example. Hot infusion is what we drink as tea. You take herbs, you pour hot water, you steep it for a while, and then you drink it. So that's what we know as tea. And the interesting thing is they're listed in this order according to how they're digested. So fresh juice is the heaviest to digest, and hot tea is the easiest to digest. Mm. So an Ayurvedic practitioner, a doctor, or an Ayurvedic chef, they would choose how to deliver the herbs according to the digestive capacity of the person, their age, the season, and a few other aspects.
Great. And I think a lot of people will find it very interesting to know that juice is harder to digest. So let's start with that one and delve a little deeper into that. You could tell us the properties of that and why, elaborate a little bit more on why it's so heavy to digest.
Yeah, I was shocked when I started learning Ayurveda. I was also shocked to learn that fresh juice is very difficult to digest. And I'm like, how come? It's just the juice. There is no fiber. There is no fat. How come it's difficult to digest? So my main Ayurveda teacher, Vaidya Mishra, he explained how the juice is really it's kind of like the essence of the plant. It's extremely nutritious, and it's also very concentrated. So, and it requires, like he would say, it has a lot of soma. It has a lot of lunar, nurturing, cooling energy. It's very somogenic, like he would say. And anything that's somogenic is kind of heavy to digest because it's liquid. So any liquid is usually heavier to digest. Water element, the fluid element, is heavier. So, and I was like, but we have all these, especially up until several years ago, we were in the juice culture, right?
Yes, very much.
Like juicing every day because it's very nutritious. It's also very cleansing. So juice in Sanskrit, the name is rasa. So this word rasa can mean so many things. It means juice. It means rasa dhatu is the first tissue, the liquid plasma in the body, the first transformation of the food we eat. It's also called, rasa can also mean mercury. It can also mean taste, like the 6 tastes of foods. So there's so many meanings, more than that. There's so many meanings of rasa. And it's really the essence, the extract of the plant, the raw plant. So in the traditional way of juicing, I meet sometimes people and they would say, oh, there was no juicing in Ayurveda. And I'm like, no, there's a juicing. Different types of juices are described. But in the traditional way of juicing plants, and usually medicinally, they would extract juice from leaves, from stems, from roots. And they would harvest them fresh. You want to juice a freshly picked leaf or a root because it's the juiciest when it's fresh.
Right.
And then they will cut it or break it into smaller pieces. And then they will put it in something like I don't know if you've seen these in India. It looks like a mortar and pestle, but it has this very tall crusher. It's a stone device.
Yes. I have seen that. Yes.
It's like a big stone ball, and then you have this, the pestle.
Like paddle.
You just pound it.
Yeah.
And you pound it, and then you put it in a cloth and you strain the juice. So that's the traditional way. Or you could also use another tool that I have in my kitchen. It's called silbata in India. It's like a big flat stone, like a granite stone. And then you have the roll. It looks like a rolling pin. And then you roll on top, on the big, you put whatever, let's say cilantro leaves or ginger, you put it on top and you roll it and you crush it that way. So stone grinding or expelling the juice with stone is recommended because stone is a cool material. So it will not overheat and oxidize the juice too quickly. Nowadays, we just use juicers.
Yes, absolutely. And so when an Ayurvedic practitioner or doctor is prescribing something for a patient, for a rogi, they would take into consideration their quality of their agni, their digestive fire. Mm-hmm. So when would this type of fresh juice be used?
So it will be used when somebody has a relatively good digestion. It depends also on the ingredients. So, for example, fresh ginger juice is a very common fresh juice, but it's also used in very small quantity. I mean, how much ginger juice can you take? It's intense. And it's usually, so fresh ginger juice, they would dilute it a little bit with water, or sometimes they would add like jaggery or honey, like things can be mixed with the juice as well. So that's recommended when you don't have any appetite, when your digestion is low. So a little bit of juice like this can help you become hungry again.
Right. It's concentrated, it's sharp, it's pungent in the case of ginger.
Yes. But also, so fresh juice would be recommended when somebody has pretty good digestive system. For example, one of the best juices is grape juice, very medicinal. Another juice mentioned is pomegranate juice. Like these are fruit juices. So fruit juices are considered more food. They are not exactly in this category. They're more like, they're called phalarasa, like fruit. Phala means fruit. Phalarasa, fruit juice. Svarasa is more the medicinal, like ginger, or if you were to extract some cilantro juice and use it, it's used on wounds, or it can stop nose bleeding and other things like that. Or sometimes the juice would be used to be mixed with other medicines, and the juice is used as a vehicle, as anupana, something that's like a delivery system for the herb.
Yeah.
And so the thing here is that dosage, right? And in America, and also I think in Europe, people tend to drink way too much juice. So, yes, it's nutritious. Also, you're drinking way too much juice. I have this experience in the past. Like I would drink a big glass of green juice, or, a mixture of different things. And then I would feel like this very, like almost nauseous, very dull feeling in my stomach. This means it was way too much for me, way too heavy for my digestion. And I'm feeling this nauseousness. Vaidya recommended, I mean, you could have fresh fruit juice, for example, but he recommended to always add a little bit of ginger juice. So if you're juicing an apple or pomegranate or pineapple even, you could add in the juicer, you can just add a piece of ginger and juice that as well, because the ginger will help you digest the heavy juice better.
Yeah, good point. And the fact that juice, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, has no fiber, so it does go through the system pretty fast, but it also spikes the blood sugar as well. So that's a concern with juice as well, depending, of course, on what's the ingredients used.
Yes, exactly. That's why Vaidya taught us to always dilute it with water.
Yeah.
Like add some water to it. Like imagine grape juice. It's delicious, but it's so sweet. So I would dilute it with water and even add a pinch of lime juice, like a little bit of lime juice. The sourness of the lime kind of cuts through the heavy sweetness of the grape.
Oh, yeah.
But the grape juice is really good for your liver and your gallbladder. And I always so right now we're still in pomegranate season, and pomegranate juice is extremely medicinal. But I would also dilute like 50-50 fresh pomegranate juice with water. I would dilute it because if it can be too astringent when it's not diluted, and this can constipate you. So in terms of medicinal uses, the dosage of juice is very small. It's like 20 milliliters, not more than 50 milliliters. With fruit juice, you can have a little bit more because, again, it's more like food. It's less like medicine. It's less strong.
Sure. And so do you use fruit juices in Divya's kitchen?
Yes, we do. So you're making me think. So we have this ginger mint limeade, which we're using the fresh juices of ginger, mint, and lime.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
We don't pound them. We don't have that time. It's really delicious. And it's beautiful green color, and it's wonderful for digestion. all the drinks we make at Divya's Kitchen, we use fresh juices, but I only select the digestive kind of juice. Because I don't want people to mix too much fruit with their food, but something like we have a hibiscus pineapple drink, and pineapple is a wonderful digestive. You can mix it with food, and it's made with fresh pineapple juice and soaked. So it's interesting. In this drink, we combine the fresh pineapple juice with the cold infusion of hibiscus flowers.
Oh, and so
it's
okay.
Very cooling.
Cooling, yeah. Hibiscus is cooling. So, and then the pineapple sharpness.
It has sharpness,
right?
yeah, because it's sour. But if the pineapple is sweet, like if it's really ripe and sweet, then it's not aggravating for pitta.
Okay.
So
good.
It's so interesting how, but yes, the ginger mint limeade is very much like fresh juices, and we dilute them. Add a little bit of raw sugar, just to make it palatable, because otherwise it tastes like medicine.
Yeah. Very good. Well, that's very interesting. And particularly the fact that the fresh juices are harder to digest. So is there anything else you wanted to add there before we move on to pulp?
No, it's sometimes if you don't, so one interesting thing is mentioned, if you don't have the fresh fruit, but if you have the pieces of dry fruit, for example, like with amla, you could not powder, but the whole like dry pieces of fruit. You could soak them for like 8 hours, and then try to extract the juice. It will be less potent, but that's like another option if you're not able to find it fresh.
Right, if it's out of season. So amla being the Indian gooseberry.
Yes.
Yeah, just for people who are unsure, but that's a good idea because maybe it's not always available fresh.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the next type of herbal liquid is pulp.
Yes, pulp or paste. So Kalka, it's called Kalka in Sanskrit. So the way of preparing this is basically how you start making juice. You would masticate the fresh leaves, for example, or fresh fruit or whatever. And then, but don't extract the juice. So the juice is with the pulp. So it's a little easier to digest, I guess, because of the fibers in it. It has also a little bit more of an earth element to it. It's not just water element. And fresh pulp is used like internally and also topically. You can use it on wounds and other things. So, for example, fresh cilantro pulp, you just grind cilantro into a paste and you make chutney.
Yes, delicious.
You make cilantro chutney. Or when you grind basil leaves, you make pesto. And I like in Joy of Balance, I have a recipe that we serve at Divya's Kitchen also. It's basil parsley pesto. And you can also add other things to it, like we add olive oil. That's the culinary application. But pulps of leaves are very often used topically for any different types of skin issues as well.
Yeah, like cilantro is often used on skin rashes, right? Irritation of the skin because of its cooling quality, right?
Yeah, very cooling. So, again, grinding it in a way that you don't overheat is important. That's why the stone apparatus is used.
It's true. How you manage it and how you produce the pulp or any of these herbal liquids is very important because you're changing the qualities and the properties maybe.
Yes, you don't want to overdo it because then it oxidizes. And because of oxidation also, you want to consume both the juice and the pulp immediately. Because the longer it sits, the more it loses its medicinal properties, its freshness, the prana fades away. Yes, so the pulp is also can be very refreshing. Another example of pulp is mango pulp. So mango pulp is delicious, and you can make mango pulp and then you can mix it with water and make a delicious drink.
Yeah. So like almost like a mango chutney.
Yes. Or mango chutney.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could make pineapple chutney that way. So crushing the fruit or the herb into pulp, and it could be leaves, it could be fruit, but mostly medicinally, leaves are used, or medicinal fruits. Again, the way this is, so I'm just making a parallel because they listed in two, the medicinal application and the culinary application listed in two separate parts of the Ayurvedic texts. But I'm kind of combining the two because most of us, we cook with these ingredients and we use them as food.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but a good reminder not to overwork these things so that you maintain the integrity of the ingredient. And I think that's really important in cooking, right, as well.
Yes.
That you don't overboil things, like you're not boiling the pulp in this case, but you're not, like you said, overworking it or overheating it so that you lose some of those really subtle properties.
Yes, exactly. And also remember that you don't need a lot. So I know people sometimes, especially in America, everything is so big. It's like 24 ounces of juice or even 12 ounces, even 8 ounces of fresh juice might be too much for you. So the pulp is used like maximum a tablespoon at a time. So you're don't, especially if it's more of a medicinal, like an herb and something more medicinal, not more than that. So don't overdo it, even though it's good for you, because too much can be, will be undigested, and then it becomes poison for you.
Sure, absolutely. And the pulp will slow down the digestion a little.
Yes.
It's less heavy than the juice. We said that the juice digests very fast, obviously, because there's no fiber, but at least the pulp will have some fiber, so it slows down the digestion. So also allowing some time for it to digest, to see how it is in your system. So not, like you said, consuming too much too fast.
Yeah, it breaks, because of the fiber, it breaks down slowly. So the juice will have a much higher glycemic index than the pulp.
Yeah. So
that's something else you might want to consider when you determine in which form to have the herbs or the fruits, is also based on blood sugar issues. So if somebody has higher blood sugar, don't give them juice unless it's something bitter. So if it's like a bitter juice, like the juice of guduchi leaves, which is extremely bitter, I don't know who can drink that. But unless it's something very bitter, it will lower blood sugar. But otherwise, it will probably increase blood sugar. So that's something you don't want to give.
And when we're thinking in terms of everyday life, like you consider, a smoothie maybe more pulp-like, right? Because it contains the fiber, whereas obviously juice is a juice. And, this is not the time of year in the cool time of year in the Northern Hemisphere to be having these. And that's another point to make, actually, is the season that you're having them in, right? But yeah, so a smoothie will be more pulp-like, and it will digest slower, keep you feeling fuller longer, and less of a spike in the blood sugar, right?
Yeah. So then also mistaken. So when we say juice is heavier to digest, it doesn't mean it's heavy to digest, but it goes through the digestive system faster, right?
Exactly.
So there is a difference
between
the transition time and the amount of agni, or digestive enzymes, digestive fire, required to fully break down and transform the juice into the next level of nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the fiber that slows that digestion down, which is why we're talking about the pulp in the smoothies. Great. Very interesting. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next one, decoction.
Yeah, the decoction. So that takes much longer to prepare. It's called Kvata in Sanskrit. Kvata. And, so it's interesting when you and usually powdered herbs are used in this. So usually dried powdered herbs. And the usual ratio is 1 part herb, 16 parts water. And you bring it to a boil, and you simmer it uncovered until the liquid reduces. So depending on the herbal decoction and depending on the condition it's meant to treat and the patient, then it can be reduced by half. Like, let's say 1 cup herb, 16 cups water. You reduce it until it's down to 8 cups of liquid, right? Mm-hmm. It can be reduced even more. So this is the most common and most it has very strong medicinal action because it's very concentrated. When the herbs touch hot water and they kind of brewing, they release the medicinal properties and chemicals into the water. So this is called osmosis in preparation. So that's the least pleasant because it's usually very bitter or very astringent. And this type of kashaya decoction is extremely potent and is extremely effective because it can penetrate deep into the tissues and go wherever it's supposed to go and deliver the medicinal properties of the herbs. It's also the least favorable, but it acts very quickly. So if you go to an Ayurvedic doctor and they give you like a bottle with a liquid, that's probably a kashaya, like the Kvata decoction. And you have to take one. Sometimes you can mix it with water just to make it a little palatable, but you have to taste it. So it's important to taste the decoction because it activates your receptors in the mouth and kind of signals the brain to do whatever it's supposed to do. But it's not pleasant. It's not like juice.
Exactly. And sometimes you'll be required to add some extra water to dilute it depending on the prescription. But also the time you take it is really important depending on the condition you're treating, right?
Yes. Yeah. So whether you take it before food, first thing in the morning, after food, with food. So all this, the doctor will tell you how to take it. Don't take this without prescription. Don't just play around it. It has to be prescribed to you. And what modern Ayurveda doctors have done is because they'll give it to patients and they'll say, I cannot take this. I just feel like throwing up. They just don't like the taste. So what they do is they dry the decoction and they dry it and make it into tablets.
Right.
And then you can take the tablet. So the tablet will be like 20% maybe or more or less effective. But one thing I learned recently that I didn't know is if you take tablets like this, it's important to crush the tablet. For most efficacy, you have to crush it and mix it with a little bit of water and drink it. So,
that makes sense because it goes back to what you were saying about the taste receptors on the tongue starts the digestive process, right? Once we intake the food and we need to, if we swallow it, bypassing all those taste receptors and that information going to the brain and so on, the efficacy may be less.
Yes. So I started doing this. I'm crushing what am I taking? I'm taking, right now, I'm just taking amla powder. So I just crush it and mix it with water, or I would just take the powder. If it's not the capsule, it will be the powder. Yeah. And it's nice. It's also nice to know the taste of different herbs. It kind of, I feel more connected with them that way.
I really think that's very important to feel the connection to what you're taking. If you don't understand what you're taking, I really think you're not an integral part of that healing journey then. I think it's really important to know what you're taking, why you're taking it, what action is on the body. And I think then you'll have more of a connection to it, which will have even more of a healing power for your body or mind.
Yeah, exactly. It's more personal. It becomes part of you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really important to know. Great. So decoctions are, widely used in Ayurveda. And as you said, now they can be taken in the pill form, which makes it a little easier. But that's a great tip to crush a little bit, take it with water. And like Divya said, don't just take these randomly. They need to be under guidance. And the time of day you take them, how you're taking them, all that is very important.
Yes,
Great.
They have to be prescribed. Yeah, they have to be prescribed because, again, in Ayurveda, everything is prescribed according to the individual. It's not just, this is good for this, let me take this. Sometimes I see this all the time. They release a supplement, an herb. It could be an Ayurvedic herbal supplement or an Ayurvedic herb, and then it lists all the benefits. And it's like, and it can help with this and with this and with this. And we just read all this and we identify with it. And it's like, oh my God, I need this and I need this. But it's not, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So an expert Ayurvedic doctor will be able to determine your whole condition as a whole, not just one symptom. Look for the causes and then prescribe the herbs in the right dose, the right way to take it, and for the right duration of time so that it really works for you.
Yeah, 100%. I'd say this over and over again. Taking something off the shelf and thinking it might be good for you could lead to a bad outcome because it could be aggravating you more than healing you. So it's really important to get some guidance. Absolutely. Yes. These herbs and these leaves and spices and used in these formats are very powerful. And we know that the digestion is like paramount overall health. So we really need to respect that. So are we ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one. So the next one is cold infusion, the Heema. And that's the fourth one. And cold infusion is very easy to make, but it takes the longest to be ready because you have to infuse it for 8 to 10 hours. So cold infusion beverages are very good for balancing pitta, like very high pitta, high agni also. And it lowers that. And they also usually very delicious. They're delicious. Like one very common one is coriander water. So you can call it coriander water, like cold infusion. And a very popular one, especially in the summer when it's so hot. I do this in the summer. And you can also do this if you're going through menopause and you're having hot flashes.
Yeah,
it's really
great
cool
and delicious.
Yes. So it's very simple to make. I usually do it overnight. So I would take a tablespoon of whole coriander seeds and just pour 4 cups of 4 to 6 cups of I do 4 cups, like a liter of spring or filtered water. You don't have to heat it, just room temperature. You don't have to boil the water. You just pour it. And I keep it in a glass container. So for balancing pitta, different materials of containers also will have an effect. So glass is neutral. It's not too heating. It's not cooling. It's kind of neutral. You can also do the infusion in a clay pot, in an earthen pot, because earthen pot cools things down. So clay pot will be even better. That will be the traditional way. And you can get on Etsy and other online stores, you can get beautifully crafted water pots made out of clay. And I have a couple of them and I use them a lot, especially in the summer.
Great. But that's a very good point that you make about how you're storing your water. Because with something like a copper vessel, that could be more pitta aggravating, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. Copper is very heating. Mm-hmm. Another great vessel is silver. Mm-hmm. If you can afford to have like a pure silver cup, if you keep water in it overnight and drink it the next day, it will have a very cooling effect on you. So silver water is also very good, like after chemotherapy or surgery, when you had a lot of chemicals in your system, like chemical drugs, there's a lot of heat. These are like hot acidic toxins from all these chemicals. So drinking silver water, or coriander water also. Coriander water is also great when you have a kidney stone, or kind of pain in your kidneys or urinary, UTI.
Urinary tract infection.
Yes. Yeah. Because it helps you to urinate. It's very diuretic, and it just pulls all this heat out of your body. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And like we said, delicious as well. And very good point that you made that with cold infusions, the purpose is them to be, room temperature and not to heat, because heating or boiling or using even pre-boiled water will change the properties.
Yes.
Of that cold infusion. So the whole purpose is to have a cooling effect on the body.
Yes. And you can also do, like we mentioned before, the hibiscus. You can have cold infusion of hibiscus. It's a beautiful, refreshing drink. So just don't make it too strong. So it has to be a very light infusion. The taste should be very gentle and light, not very strong.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the summer, I would do like, I have Tulsi plant at home. I love to take care of Tulsi. And, in the summer, she gives a lot of flowers, a lot of manjaris, like a little bit. And I offer them on my altar, and then I would put the fresh Tulsi in water, and I would make cold infusion with Tulsi.
Oh, nice.
And even though Tulsi has a heating effect on the body, the taste of Tulsi water is just amazing. It tastes so good, and it's very good for strengthening the immune system. I usually don't cook the Tulsi. I just make like a cold infusion with it.
Yeah, so that would be less heating that you're making the cold infusion. Plus, it's very calming, right, for the body, very calming for the mind as well. So, yeah, something very earthy and grounding about Tulsi. I love it.
Yeah, and another famous cold infusion is with jasmine flowers. I grow 3 types of jasmine on my balcony.
Wow.
I bring them inside during the winter, but otherwise they bloom like all summer, and they're so fragrant and beautiful. So I would take like room temperature water and put like, depending on the size, the different sizes of jasmine. If it's the small ones, I would use like 4 or 5 in a liter of water. And you can add Tulsi to it also if you want, and just keep it overnight. And then you drink that water, and it's not only fragrant, and it kind of creates this beautiful fragrance in your mouth. It really uplifts your mood. And jasmine is a wonderful mood lifter.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. I'm very impressed that you grow all this jasmine in New York City.
Yes, I love gardening. I have a long balcony, so I grow a lot of things. And I just planted plumarias. They call champa. They're trees, beautiful flowering.
Those flowers are stunning.
Yeah, this is the flower of Hawaii, and I just learned that I can grow them in pots. So I just planted 4 of them.
Wow.
And let's see what happens.
Wow. Well, very impressive. Where there's the will, there's a way, right? Even in the heart of New York City, you have your green around you. That's fantastic. Great. So that's cold infusion. And then moving on to hot infusion, which we're all very familiar with.
Yeah. So that's called Phanta in Sanskrit. Phanta. So hot infusion is, just making tea. So you don't really cook it. You steep it. So you take the herb and you pour boiling hot water over, cover it, and you steep it. Depending on the herb, how long depends on the herb and also the quantity of the herb. So if it's less, you can steep it longer. If it's more, you can steep it shorter. And that's also another, just the heat helps to extract the properties, and the hot infusion is great for balancing Vata and Kapha. There's so many different types of herbal teas. Yes, it's very common to use, but don't reuse the herbs. So once you infuse it in the hot water, just throw out.
Great. And can we maybe give a few examples for people of the type of herbal tea that's best maybe for each dosha type? Just a couple of examples, please.
Yes. Well, I'm just thinking, so let's say you can make chamomile tea, right? So that's very simple. And also you can mix many different herbs here as well, and there are guidelines of what herbs to mix for whatever conditions. But you can just make simple chamomile tea at night if you need to calm down.
Sure, that's perfect for like a vata. Now, people may be buying these herbs, right? They're already in tea bags. They may not be sourcing the actual flowers themselves. But yeah, like a chamomile or lavender, I think is great, or vetiver for vata.
Yes. I created 5 different types of teas. We're releasing them as products, as Divya's products. We included them in the Ayurveda Reset Kit. It's a new product bundle that we just released, and we have 5 different types of broths that we're about to release in spring, and 5 different types of teas. And I've been working a lot on this, and we have I call it peace of mind tea. So it has chamomile, lavender, rose petals, and a few other herbs that really helps to calm down your mind and your body.
Nice.
And yes, you just steep it for 5 to 10 minutes. You can add honey to it. Just remember the honey should be added when you're ready to sip the tea, so the water is not too hot. It's very easy to make. I don't recommend drinking this at night because a lot of these herbal teas are diuretic, and it will make you get up in the morning, at night to pee more, and it will interrupt your sleep more. Yeah. But you can always start with such a tea. And also these hot infusions are also used as enemas, as basti. Mm-hmm. Basti is the Sanskrit word. So small amounts are used as enemas.
Yeah, they are, and they're very effective. And just to go back, just because we talked about samples of teas for Vata, I know for Pitta, obviously in the height of summer, hot season, you wouldn't really want a hot infusion, but springtime or early fall, you could do like a hibiscus or rose or something like that, right? That would be good for Pitta.
Yes, and you can make coriander tea. So you can use coriander as a cold infusion and as hot infusion. Balancing Pitta doesn't mean that you only need to have cool things, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, I was reading the same section of Ashtanga Hridayam, speak about boiled water and the importance of boiling your water before you drink it. So boiled water is easier to digest than room temperature water. And I was surprised, actually. So it's explained that when you boil your water, you put water in a pot, you bring it to a boil, uncovered, and you let it simmer. So, simmer, but it's like, it could be a hard boil. I guess it will evaporate faster if it's a hard boil. But if you let the water evaporate by a quarter, so the water is reduced by a quarter in the pot, this is balancing for Vata. It reduces Vata. If you evaporate the water by half, it reduces Pitta. So this is how very boiled water can be used. And then if only 1/4, it reduces by 3/4. In other words, only 1/4 of the quantity of the original water remains in the pot. This is best for kapha balancing. And it's actually really good for weight loss.
I can imagine, because the boiling action is crashing all those water molecules together, and it's bringing more prana, more energy into it. So that makes absolute sense.
Yeah, more air. So it brings more air elements.
Yeah, exactly. And as well, isn't there something about not reboiling water? So if the water is cools down, not using that same water and reboiling that as well. I remember hearing that before.
Yeah. Or don't mix boiled water with cooked water and uncooked water. Don't mix these two.
Yeah.
Like if you think, let me cool down my tea, and you cook the water, you make the tea, and then it's like, let me pour some cold water from the tap just to cool it down. So it changes the vibration, right? So these are two different vibrations that can clash. These are very subtle details that Ayurveda gives.
But really interesting that, and this is why we love Ayurveda, because you always something more to learn in Ayurveda. It just goes deeper and deeper and more layers. But I think it's really important to understand how you're taking your liquids in, even if it is just water, and how, especially in the Northern Hemisphere this time of year, that you should be boiling your water like we often say, drink water at room temperature, but now the room temperature water will be too cold. So you got to make sure that it's, warm when it's entering the body, especially if you're in a cold climate right now. Mm-hmm. Right. The listeners love it when we give ideas about what, for each dosha type. So for kapha, lots of warming teas, cinnamon maybe to balance the blood sugar. That can be a good spice to add, but all the warming spices are great to warm kapha and aid digestion.
Cinnamon, like chai, the way you make chai.
Exactly.
But see, chai is a decoction. properly made chai, you have to brew for a while. And it's mixed with milk often, of course. But you could even take the chai herbs, which are cinnamon, cardamom, dried ginger, black pepper, cloves. Some people like to add nutmeg or star anise is great in this season also. And you can just crush them and pour hot water and steep it and drink it that way.
Very good. That'd be delicious and perfect for all those warming spices, especially for kapha.
Yes. This brings me also like a very simple indigestion remedy, especially when you feel kind of nauseous and you feel that the food didn't digest and it's just still sitting there and it feels so heavy and sluggish. You can make a simple tea with ajwain. So ajwain is a seed. It's a spice, very heating. Really, really amazing for indigestion. So sometimes, like, if I ate too late, I was hungry at night and I ate too late and maybe I ate a little too much for the night, and I would wake up in the morning and I would feel like, it's kind of heavy in the stomach. I don't feel any appetite. So the first thing I would drink in the morning will be a little bit of ajwain tea. That I steep the ajwain seeds for 5 minutes and then drink it. And I would use like 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of ajwain seeds for a cup of water, like 10 ounces of water. And then just sip on this. I wouldn't even drink all the 10 ounces. I would just sip until I feel that I've had enough. And literally within half an hour, this sensation disappears. It's amazing how ajwain can support digestion.
Yeah, ajwain is beautiful for that. And also just all the properties. It's fascinating how all these herbs and spices have different properties, and learning about them and even experimenting in your body, how you feel after them, and also having awareness of what you're choosing when you're buying these things, and being aware of, your constitutional type, the season, age, when you're drinking them, the time of day. I mean, like I said, we could go deeper and deeper because Ayurveda is just such a vast wealth of wisdom. But it also makes it really interesting, and being curious about, what types of herbs and spice are best for you and how to use them in your own daily life. I think it's great.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Divya, thank you so much. This was really interesting to go through these 5 types of herbal liquids. And before we finish up, if there's anything else you want to add, but also if you could tell us a bit more about these exciting products you have, the broths, the teas, the bundles that you have available on divyas.com.
Yes. Well, they very much kind of relate to what we've been talking about, but in a slightly different way, more for food and nourishment, and rather than medicinal uses, even though they have very healing properties, but you can use them in larger amount because they're more for food. So in our current reset kit, we call it Ayurveda Reset Kit. So we include your meals for 3 days. So it has our khichdi packets, soup packets, but also we included several broths that are very nutritious, but also slightly cleansing. So we have a liver support broth, which has bitter melon powder, beet powder, and a few other herbs and spices. And I add a binder to it, like cassava flour, which binds the toxins that are released from the tissues.
Excellent.
And it's delicious. It doesn't taste very bitter. It actually tastes really good. And I love sipping it. It feels so, it's very alkalizing. It just feels so good. There is immune, what do you call it? Anti-inflammatory broth. So the base for this is moringa with a few balance. Moringa is very hot and sharp. So we balance it with cooling spices and herbs. Similar things. So you would eat khichdi or soup, and then you have the broths in between. And certain teas, there's a digestive tea that helps to thin the bile. It has chicory and haritaki and a few other herbs, because a lot of people experience digestive issues when the bile is too thick.
Yeah, sludge, bile sludge.
There's exactly. Yeah. So you can get constipated from that. You can get diarrhea from, diarrhea is when the bile is too thin, but you could have like acid reflux, or you can be very bloated, and all of this could be due to the bile. And this tea is really works miracles when you have it between lunch and dinner. All of a sudden you feel energized. Great. There's a morning gentle detox tea. There's an evening mind pacifying tea. So we have like a whole brochure. We also created a 20-minute video, where I explain how to use everything, how to prepare the recipes. And it's delicious because it's cleansing, but it's also delicious. And it really helps you to reset your digestive system. And you definitely feel better. You have more energy. And I've seen it with myself. It's like whenever I do this, my skin all of a sudden becomes better, like more clear, and people are like, oh, wow, you're glowing. And the nice thing is that if doing it in three days in a row, maybe it's too much for your body right now, or it doesn't fit your schedule, you can also do it once a week. You can spread it over 3 weeks. So great. We'll release the individual broths and teas by spring. We're just working on the packaging now, but it's exciting. And we have a bunch of other products that we're going to release this year, and really excited.
It's very exciting to watch how you're expanding, and it's wonderful. And also you have the educational videos as well, the masterclasses.
Yes, the masterclasses are on-demand videos that you can purchase. And the good news is that you can also purchase. I mean, we lowered the price, but also you can purchase them for just $24 a month and you kind of pay every month. So we make them very affordable as well.
Great.
And I love these masterclasses, and we'll be shooting more this year as well. It really gives you the foundation of understanding the basics of Ayurveda in relation to food, how to prepare recipes, how to prepare staples, how to cook with spices, how to cook with the seasons. And it's very visual and it's very engaging. And people love them. We're getting 5-star reviews across the board. And I'm so glad that it's not just entertaining. It's actually can be very transformational in your relationship with food.
Amazing. You have such great offers, Divya. And I know that everything you put your heart into is high quality. So congratulations. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Really wonderful. And I'll put all the links in the show notes for all of you to check out divya.com and all the offerings available. Divya, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom as always, and come back and visit us again soon.
Yes, thank you so much, Colette. And I hope you'll come to New York City again this year. Let us know.
I'll definitely let you know if I get to New York this year. Absolutely. I would love to come and visit you. Thank you, Divya. Until next time, take care of yourself.
Yes, bye-bye. Thank you for listening, everybody.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Divya, and please check out the show notes for all the links mentioned. If you think this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them so we can spread this wisdom of Ayurveda. If you would like to check out my online services, please do so at elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and you can find that link in the show notes also. And you can follow me on social media under Elements Healing and Wellbeing on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.